Would you advise your students to start a screenplay without an outline and just start writing, don't worry about structure?
So I think that you should do whatever works for you. And, you know, not everyone likes to write with an outline. Different processes work for different people. So I think whatever works for you is great. However, I do think that a lot of writers, you know, especially if they're just learning the craft, they get stuck without an outline. And so for that reason, I do teach an outlining class, because I think that having a strong outline can really help you make it all the way through to your finished first draft, right? Which is where you're going to learn the most. You don't learn as much by starting 10 screenplays as you do by finishing one screenplay. So I do think having an outline can really help you make it through the process, which is why I advise doing it if you don't already have a process that works for you. I also think that, you know, the writing process is a lot of work, and you end up doing the same amount of work regardless. So to me, it's preferable to do the heavy lifting up front, figure out all of the stuff, make all the mistakes you're going to make with plotting in the outlining phase, so that you don't have to spend all that time writing the script and then work with 100 pages. You're working with 5 pages of an outline when you're trying to rearrange things, figure out why your structure is not working, figure out how to escalate things or whatever it is that you're doing.
Do you ever see some of the students do an outline and realize, I don't like my story?
Yes, I think that can happen, but I think it's usually temporary. So part of the fun of outlining, I think, is actually that you are doing a lot of the heavy lifting, right? So you're thinking through, what are all the details? How is this, you know, how's the plot going to progress? What's the character arc? What are the relationships like? What are the, you know, big set pieces? What are the obstacles? All that good stuff. So you're actually doing a lot of the fun imagining and story creation stuff in the outlining phase. So I think for that reason, it doesn't happen very often where somebody outlines a whole story and then decides they don't like it enough to write it. I think that when that does happen, a lot of times the problem isn't actually in having gotten through the outline itself. The problem is really in the concept. So now that they've seen what this concept looks like in, you know, fully fleshed out into a whole story, then they go, oh, that wasn't, you know, I thought there was something interesting there, but now it's not delivering like the entertainment value that I wanted, or whatever they don't like about it. So I think if you get to a full outline and at that point you're feeling disappointed in your story, it might have something to do with that initial, you know, premise that you came up with.
Getting a script to someone for fresh eyes, how does a writer know that they're getting their script to the right person? What if they're getting it to a friend who's only going to tell them great things, what they want to hear? And then conversely, what if they get it to someone who the writer views as overly critical, but actually that's the best person to give it to?
Yeah, I mean, you're asking the eternal question of like, no, it's good, because that is really confusing, right? If you've gone through the whole struggle of finishing your screenplay, the next question is like, who do I give it to? Who reads it? So I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing if you want to give your script to somebody who's going to give you praise. I think that that's okay. That can make you feel good, right? And kind of get you over the hump of like, okay, now I need to rewrite it. But I wouldn't rely solely on all positive reviews. I think the things to think about maybe when you're having people read your script for the purpose of giving you feedback or notes that you're going to implement into your next draft. Think about where this person is coming from in terms of experience, how many scripts they read, because reading a script is a whole thing that you have to get used to, right? Like if my mom read a script tomorrow, she would not know what to make of it. She wouldn't have any idea sort of how to consume a story in this medium. So someone who has a lot of experience reading scripts, they're just going to have a better sense of what's working and not working just right off the bat, I think. I would be careful that you're not giving it to someone who doesn't have your best interests, right? Which can sometimes be the danger of writers' groups. Not everyone. You want to make sure the person who's reading your script wants to help you get that script where you want it to be, not where they want it to be, unless you're writing for a producer. So then, then you're going to do what they want you to do. But no, but if you're just writing a spec and you're trying to get feedback on it to improve the script, you want to make sure that the people reading it have experience so that they can understand how to process the story in a script, and then also that they want to help you achieve your goal with the script versus turning it into what they think it should be. I think those are probably the two main things I would say to look out for.
And experience doesn't necessarily equate with having your best interest.
Yeah,
okay.
That's definitely true.
Yeah. And that's really sounds like something that it's going to be case by case. You're just not going to know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess that is, hopefully if you're giving your script to somebody for a friendly read, so it's not a service that you're paying for or something like that, right? If it's just, your friend that you met in writing class and you want to get notes from them, hopefully you know them well enough that you can gauge what kind of, where they're coming from with their notes, right? Are they going to help you try to get where you want to be? And if you don't know that about them and you give them your script anyway, hopefully you understand the difference between notes that are helping you and notes that are taking you totally away from your original vision, right? And that's a good thing to think about too, is distinguishing between those types of notes, or being able to. You have to be able to take a note in, sort of evaluate its usefulness to you, and then not get your feelings hurt and decide if you're going to implement it or not.
Right. And just, this is me saying this, not you, but also maybe be careful of people too eager to take a look at your stuff. And hey, why don't you email me that? Because sometimes then you can see that, wow, and then you get this feedback and it's totally, it's not only helpful, it's discouraging. So sometimes there's like this sheep a wolf in sheep's clothing, and you don't totally realize it.
Yeah.
So I think it's just developing a rapport with someone, because you'll quickly see that.
Yeah, and also another sort of good yardstick to measure whether you want somebody to read is just talking about them about movies in general or other screenplays, right? Because you can gauge somebody's taste. You can gauge whether you agree with them on the things because everyone has opinions about movies they've seen, like, oh, the ending of that was terrible, or whatever. If you disagree with everything they're saying, maybe that's not a person you want to have read your script, because clearly you have a difference in, point of view when it comes to like what makes a good story or what makes a story work. So I'd say that's something that you can, sort of keep in the back of your mind as a way to gauge whether someone should read your material or not.
Yeah, so it sounds like story mechanics take a long time to fine tune, and also finding that person for feedback takes the same.
Yeah, and also another thing you could do is trade reads, right? Because if you have someone who is invested in getting good feedback from you or useful feedback, and not getting their feelings hurt, then you'll probably have a little bit more of an even trade there too, right?
That's a good point.
Yeah.